All right, I think we can start. But well, you can just introduce yourself and just.
Okay, I'm Richard Hutchinson, and I had 20 years in the United States Air Force.
Awesome. So we can just start with something about like your first experiences in the military. Like, why did you join the military and why did you pick the service, that service?
Well, my
Branch.
brother was in the Air Force before I was, and it seemed like he had a good experience, and I liked how he felt about it, and I also had a couple of uncles that had been in the service. One was in the Navy, one in the Army, and I just thought it was neat to be able to serve our country and get into a field that I wanted to get into, which was printing, but ended up that they had enough printers and they didn't need me, so they put me into working on aircraft.
Awesome. And do you recall your first days in boot camp or
Well,
in the military?
one of the things I remember was we were going to from home, Buffalo, New York, to Sampson Air Force Base, which is Geneva, New York, and they put us on a train and took us there, and it was a lot of fun meeting a lot of the people, the guys from all over Buffalo, New York, and so forth in the area, and it was a good time, and it was started off in the summertime, July. It was hot, but it was enjoyable meeting different people.
And this was the boot camp.
This was boot camp, right? Boot
Uh,
camp was a very interesting time. We lived in World War II barracks. We had one flight was in the upstairs, and the other flight was in the downstairs, and you got to intermix doing various things of marching and exercise and so forth, and training, and it was a lot of fun.
Cool and hard too.
Oh yes, yeah,
I've had yeah.
difficult, but that goes along with life, you know. Not everything is easy.
So you just got through it. How did you get through it?
Well,
All of it.
it's something that you know you have to do, and you don't give up, and you lean on each other's shoulders and help each other out, and it was a good experience of working with others and new people that you've never met before. So.
So and what war or wars did you serve in?
What was that?
War? How many? Like what wars did you serve in?
What years I joined in?
Like what kind of war? Like Vietnam, right?
Yeah, that was later on.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I went in 1955.
Oh.
So
Okay.
the Vietnam War, I didn't get involved with that until that was in
So
the 60s.
before that, you just stayed in the military in New York.
Well,
and-
no, went from the basic training to a tech school
Uh-huh.
where I learned about mechanical accessories, which was air conditioning pressurization of aircraft. And that was at Chanute Air Force Base, Rantoul, Illinois. And after that, I got shipped to Westover, Massachusetts, and spent 3.5 years there. And that's where I met my wife. And I worked on KC-97s and KC-135s, and working as both doing hydraulics and mechanical accessories, right? And had various trips from there to Thule, Greenland for 2 months,
Mm.
very cold.
I bet.
And then went to Eielson Air Force Base, TDY, for a couple of days on KC-135.
Oh, wow. And that's what you did just before entering the war.
Well, yes, for a while. Once I left Westover, I went to tech school on a new missile called the Hound Dog, what they call GAM-77, and it was a missile that was hung underneath the wing of a B-52. So when I got to Eglin Air Force Base, after I went through tech school, then we got into loading and running the engines and pulling maintenance on the Hound Dog. And then I went flying, about 3 or 4 times on a B-52 with the missile underneath it, and training, and very different when you flying from various aircraft I've been in. B-52 is the biggest one, and it's the bomber, of course, and it with the missiles underneath it. It was a quite adventurous missions that we had to do on that. So
Must be super fun, but
yeah, you gotta have fun. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, get out.
Right.
And I had fun, so that's why I stayed in for 20 years.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a lot.
So then when I left
Um,
Eglin, then I went to Davis Monthan Air Force Base at Tucson, Arizona. And that's when I got into drones, reconnaissance type aircraft. And that's when I got into going to the Vietnam War.
And so, what was your main job during the war?
During the war, we were two things that I did. One, we worked on the maintenance of the drone, uploading the drone onto a DC-130s, which was a C-130 cargo aircraft modified with pylons underneath the wings, and we loaded the birds on that. And then they had cameras in them, and the aircraft would take off and fly up to the Haiphong Harbor, launch the bird. It would fly over North Vietnam, and then we'd come back to the South Vietnam, and we would recover it and take it back to Benoit, where we were, and recycle it, put some more film in it, and gas, and fly it again.
That's cool. So, that's just it. That's pretty much your main job you had there.
Yeah, that was the main thing.
Do you have like any experiences in particular that you want to talk about? Like, if you recall something, like something that happened super interesting or
We had, while there, I was there four or five times.
Mm-hmm.
A short period, 30 days, 90 days, 120 days, depending. It was all TD-wise. So anyways, while we're there in various times, we had mortar attacks by the Viet Cong. So we would, when the siren would go off, we'd head for the bunkers, and very fortunate that never got hurt, and nobody around us did, but there was a lot of damage and so forth. And that happened, as I said, 4 or 5 times. And then I had one experience that my dad chewed me out for, but it was I got on one of our missions of the C-130s, and we were flying about 200 feet off the ocean, off the deck, as you call it, and we're going up to the Haiphong Harbor. And we were, the reason I went on the flight was that the squadron commander was on the flight, and it was time for me to re-enlist. So I re-enlisted, swearing and saying my oath on the C-130 at 200 feet off the deck, going up into the Haiphong Harbor, which we come to find out, listening to the radio, that there was MiGs that were on their way to attack us. So, but the Navy was covering us. They had F-4s up there, and they ran them off and so forth. But still, it was a point that you could hear the Navy saying, Mama ship, go, get out of the way, because bogey's coming. So we dropped our drones and 180 and flew back to south. So nothing happened, but it was exciting, to hear that somebody was going after you.
So that's pretty much not pretty much, it's a lot. So it's something like, it was a situation in which you felt in danger.
Yes.
And do you recall any others, or that was the main one, or like the one that
was
remember
main.
the most?
The mortar attacks, depending on where we were at. We also had one incident one night where there was, not too far from Benoit was Long Bend. It's an Army depot, and it was all ammunition, storage of bombs and everything that was being used by various aircraft. And the Vietnamese laid a mortar into it, and it exploded a lot of the ammunition.
Wow.
And that was probably 20 miles away, and the hangar that we were working in had fluorescent fixtures on the ceiling, and the explosion was so bad that concussion hit the building, and the fixtures some fell to the floor and stuff. So we had some repairs to do, but nobody got hurt.
Oh.
It was just a point that it doesn't have to be right there. It can be miles away and still affect you, and that was an exciting time.
Wow. So, did you, well, you told me that you went in a lot of places. Actually, this question was like, did you go anywhere else besides Vietnam? But you just told me.
Well, yeah, at that time of my service, I had other trips that I had made. As I said, when I was in Vietnam, I took and flew up to Okinawa.
Keep going. It was, you were talking about Okinawa and the trip.
Right. We just went up there for maintenance on one of our C-130s that we had to do. So.
Nice. And what's your best memory of your military experience?
Oh gosh, there were so many. We had several things that goes on in your life while you're there, but I always went over with a positive attitude that everything will work out. Enjoy it. It's part of your life, and do the best you can, and help other people. And it's just one of those things that you got to keep positive on what you're doing. Even in the military, you have to work with a lot of different people. You're there serving your country. You have to just do the best, as I've said, and have fun. And there was a lot of fun. Yes, there was stress at times, but hey, there's stress in everybody's life at various times. You just got to get over it and keep going forward.
So, you said you met your wife before Vietnam, right?
Yes, when I got to Westover.
So how did you stay in touch with her or your family?
Well, most of my time, the wife was with me. She went to Florida with us. We lived together there, and in Tucson and San Diego. So she was with me all the time, except for on my TDYs, where I went off for 30, 60 days or whatever, But there was a lot of, at that time we didn't have emails like you have today. You wrote letters,
right,
or you got on the telephone, and not too many of the telephone calls because you're in remote areas and it's hard to have all that communications. Most of the communications that the military was having was for missions and for higher ups, officers and so forth, to communicate their mission and what they had to do. So we didn't have that much of the radio stuff.
So, and like in normal days, in like the routine of the days, maybe when you didn't have anything to do, how did you entertain yourself? Or?
Well, it depended on where you were. In Vietnam, we did a little touring around. Everything wasn't bad outside the base. We were in South Vietnam. It was the areas we'd go into a town once in a while, or we'd go to the BX, or we'd go to the chapel, or just something to help kill the time. Or sometimes you would work overtime, and because somebody was sick, you had to take their place because the mission went on. You couldn't stop. You always had to be ready to go any time of the day or night.
The show must go on.
Yes.
Do you, well, this is not a great question, but like, do you recall any particularly humorous or unusual event?
Oh gosh. Yes, I do remember one. And this was earlier in my career when I was at Westover in the 50s. There had been, there's two little stories to this. One of them is we were one of the first KC-135 refueling.
And yeah, you were talking about the
special event.
Yeah.
Well, as I said, it was earlier in the 50s, the late 50s, that we had a new squadron of KC-135s, and they were doing a lot of testing of them, of distance that they would fly, loads that they would put on the aircraft.